All right, so for the third installment of the Gaining Muscle series, we're going to talk more about programming strategies. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to discuss is going to be variety. Okay, so making sure that you're hitting the muscle from different angles with different variations. So this is going to ensure that you're targeting different areas of that specific muscle group. So for example, we have the tricep pull down that's going to be on a cable, and notice how his upper arm is going to be neutral in this variation. The other variation, and another way to target your tricep, would be kind of an overhead variation of the tricep extension. Okay, so in this case, notice how his upper arm is more flexed. So by doing this, this is going to actually target the long head of your tricep. We can use the same concept and apply it to bicep curl variations. Okay, so we have the upper arm that's going to be in front of the torso. On the preacher curl, we have the upper arm that's going to be behind the torso in the incline curl. Well, in the incline curl, again, we're going to be targeting the long head of the bicep a little bit more. So again, making sure that we have a full development of that specific muscle group. For different bench press variations, again, you might only do flat bench, so you might add some incline, you might add some decline, and different variations of those to make sure that you're targeting different areas of your chest. We can use the same concept and apply it to calf raises. Okay, so you can have your feet spread out further, you can have your feet a little bit closer, you can have your toes pointing in, toes pointing out, toes pointing forward, all those different variations to ensure that you're targeting different areas of that specific muscle group. The next thing is going to be rest period. Okay, so I'll kind of give you guys the, rationale for having longer rest periods and the benefits of having longer rest periods during resistance training when you're trying to induce muscular growth. So if we think about longer rest periods, we have on one side of the spectrum, we know that, hey, if we rest a little bit longer, we're probably going to be able to do more weight. So what's that mean? More force, right? Well, we know that force has an impact on mechanical tension. And again, as we learned earlier, that is a big driver of muscular growth. It also can have an impact on your overall volume load. So if you look down here and look at volume load, basically volume load is just the amount of sets that you do, times the amount of reps that you do, times how much weight that is done. So if your weight's going to be higher because you have longer rest periods, well, that's going to be a higher volume load, which is good, right? Higher volume load over time is going to have a big impact on your overall muscular growth. So we look at the other side of the table, and again, longer rests. Well, what's going to happen if you have longer rests? Well, you can probably do more reps, right? So let's say that you have the same amount of weight, but you took a longer rest period. We can probably able to squeak out a couple extra reps versus if you only took like a 30-second rest. Well, we know that by doing high amount of reps that we can target metabolic stress, but again, also it impacts the overall volume load because, again, more reps that you do, the higher the volume load is. Okay, well, we have all these things combined together, and that's going to basically equal more muscular growth. So the longer rest periods can definitely be beneficial. You can probably get away with using shorter rest periods for more single joint exercises like your bicep curl or your tricep extension, just because it doesn't take as long to recover from those. But again, just to be safe, if you're willing to take a little bit longer time in the gym, then longer rest periods are probably going to be your best bet. Okay, now the next one's going to be exercise order. Now it's going to be pretty common to do things that are multi-joint first, followed by the single joint stuff. And this is a common strategy when you're trying to develop strength. When it comes to building muscle, it's probably not as big of a deal. So for example, if the main objective is to build muscle, then having let's say a rope pull down in front of the bench press is probably not going to be a big deal, probably not going to have that much of an impact on your chest and tri type day. Motivation can also be a factor for this though. Now, so if you front load all your single joint exercises first and you save your harder type stuff for later on, so again, your bench press, your overhead press, your incline bench press, whatever it is, then at the end of the training session when things are kind of hard, you might not really feel all that motivated to do those things. So most of us probably want to build strength and muscle. So again, to play it safe, you might just do your multi-joint exercises first, followed by your single joint type stuff, and then call it good. Again, for straight up hypertrophy, probably not that big of a deal, but we're all trying to get stronger as well. So I would say that's probably your safe bet. The next one's going to be muscle damage considerations. Now, for us, we shouldn't primarily aim for high amounts of damage necessarily. Like, we shouldn't walk into the gym and be like, all right, I'm going to make myself super sore today. Or wake up the next morning and say, oh, I'm not really all that sore. I don't think I worked hard enough. Because we know, like, by having a lot of damage, it can be pretty tough on our training, right? High soreness essentially is going to be less strength, and it's going to be faster fatigue, right? We're not going to be able to go as long, accumulate as many reps, or as much weight. So what's that mean? Well, essentially that's going to mean we're going to have less mechanical tension and overall volume accumulation, which again, these two things are going to be big drivers for muscular growth. So again, for us, like, we shouldn't necessarily think about trying to inflict a bunch of damage on our muscles necessarily, because it can impact our training down the road. And that's kind of a good segue for this and setting up the training week. So a decent strategy to kind of take is that you can accumulate volume over time and across the week. So you don't have to necessarily do, let's say that you have a leg day. You don't necessarily have to do all of your leg exercises in one day, right? Maybe you can spread those things out, and by doing that, you might have higher quality. You might not get as sore. You might not be as fatigued, okay? Also, again, motivation comes into play for this as well, is that you might be more motivated to complete the session if it's not as long. You know, let's say that you have 10 exercises for your leg day. Well, when it comes down to those last couple, you might be ready to get out of there, right? So now this depends on training level. This depends on your schedule. This depends on general motivation. If you're the type of person where it's kind of difficult for you to get up and go to the gym, then again, you might just throw it all in one day, eat it, and say, hey, I'm going to be here for a decent amount of time, and then, go about your day from there. But this is just going to be an example of maybe, rough example of maybe a strategy that we can do. So let's say that we have our lower body day, and we have, all these exercises. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 exercises in here. By looking at this, it looks like a pretty common lower body type day. But again, we know that by looking at this top portion of the workout, like, back squat's going to be pretty tough. RDL is going to be pretty tough. We're doing some things in the moderate rep range, but our effort's going to be pretty high. And then when we get towards the end, we have our higher rep type stuff getting close to failure, or getting pretty much to failure, trying to take advantage of metabolic stress. So, the question comes up, well, it's like, well, how much juice do we got left? How motivated are you going to feel by the time that these 3 exercises come around, especially if you went pretty hard up here? So, a decent strategy is that you might just have less exercises per day and spread them out across the week. So an example, again, a rough example of that might be, instead of doing all of your exercises on this Wednesday, and then we'll just use legs, for example, because that's what we've been doing. Maybe you spread it out across the week. Maybe instead of doing it all on Wednesday, we do one day on Tuesday, one day on Friday. Now, if you're not as gassed out because your session is not as long, maybe by spreading out these 2 days that, maybe on that second leg day, you're actually able to maybe do a little extra weight, maybe a couple extra reps, maybe another set even, as opposed to, getting towards the end of your 10 exercise workout day and you're ready to leave, right? So you might be going to the gym on that second leg day, fresh and ready to go because you didn't gas yourself out so much. Or again, you're just able to do more reps, more weight, whatever it is, just because, you haven't been there for an hour already. So one thing to consider there for sure. Now, the essentials are important, right? They're essentials for a reason. So your sleep, your nutrition, your recovery is super, super, super important. Your sleep impacts how much muscle that you're able to grow. Your nutrition has obviously a huge impact on your overall growth. You can't really gain a lot of muscle, or if any muscle at all, while you're in a calorie deficit. We don't have the fuel to be able to build that up. And then your recovery too. So these things, could be a whole separate series of videos, but just know that these things 1000% matter when it comes to developing muscle. And then the last thing, it's not really rocket science, especially for beginners. For people who haven't really trained a whole lot, for people who haven't, had a ton of experience with resistance training, they can go in and do minimal things and probably gain a decent amount of muscle, especially early on. For people who are more advanced, that's when the programming strategies, the variations, being real specific with your nutrition and stuff like that is going to have more of an impact on them. But that's what I'm here for, to help you guys out with. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and then please subscribe and check out some more of our videos.